This is Puppet Master All Challenges, a Five Nights at Freddy's challenge that only has one animatronic. However, this one animatronic happens to be one of the hardest animatronics to deal with in the history of FNAF. On his own, he carries this challenge all the way to number 46 on the main list, and to this day, this is the hardest FNAF challenge I've ever attempted. That's right, even though it's only episode 2, we are bringing out the big guns on this episode of The Ladder. This is the story of how I beat one of the most intense FNAF challenges ever made. This is part 2 of my Ladder series. If you haven't seen part 1, I'd recommend watching that video before this one, as this challenge is actually from the same game, and so it will be expanding upon many of the concepts and mechanics that were introduced in that one. But to give a brief recap, this challenge is from the mod series Five Nights at Candy's But Better, a remake to all the Five Nights at Candy's games to rework their gameplay to be a bit more interesting and a lot more difficult. But more specifically, this challenge is from the Five Nights at Candy's 3 remake in the But Better series, called Five Nights at Candy's 3 Custom Night. We're no longer focusing on Rat and Cat this time, as without pre-patching or self-imposed challenges, Rat and Cat All Challenges with the OG laser pointer is actually as hard as that challenge gets. This time, we will be clicking the arrow in the main menu to access the Puppet Master game mode, a rework of vanilla Five Nights at Candy's 3's final night with Monster Vinnie. Monster Vinnie is the only animatronic in this night, but this man is so jacked that even on his own, he rivals the difficulty of both Rat and Cat combined. For the base version of Puppet Master, Vinnie can be stalled at the doors just like Rat and Cat can, but he will eventually get in for the main gameplay, the attack sequences. Vinnie's attack sequences are quite different from Rat and Cat's, however, as Vinnie can dodge in a complete circle and actually move between locations mid-attack. After surviving an attack for long enough, he will have a bedside sequence and the cycle repeats. And that's actually about it for the cycle of the night. It's very simple this time. So then, what makes it so difficult? Well, like Rat and Cat, we have some optional challenges we need to turn on. But first we need to address the elephant in the room, that damn kill timer. Rather than having a health bar like Rat and Cat do, Vinnie gets most of his difficulty from his absurdly fast kill timer. During an attack sequence, if at any time your mouse is off his hitbox for more than 0.75 seconds, you instantly die. That is this long. So you need to be really fast with your mouse movements and reaction times in order to stand a chance. And if you remember what laser pointer does, yeah, you could probably see this getting pretty difficult. But more on that later. So for our first challenge, Vinnie actually gets his own shadow version just like Rat and Cat did. But it's a lot more complicated than either one of them. With the Shadow Vinnie challenge on, the room gets all grayscale and edgy. But it's hard to be scared here when the main animatronic looks like a femboy with a massive forehead. I'm not kidding, his forehead is so big it literally caused me gameplay issues later down the line. But in addition to that, Vinnie will never leave your room anymore, sort of like Shadow Cat. So now you are constantly dealing with attacks with absolutely zero breaks. Well, other than the bedside sequences, but even those are hellishly difficult later on. Also, with the Shadow Vinnie challenge on, every hour Vinnie behaves differently, and in general, Vinnie gets harder and harder as the night progresses. At the start of the night, Vinnie can only do slow spins and occasional fast spins. At 1 AM, Vinnie can start changing directions while slow spinning. At 2 AM, he gets much faster. At 3 AM, he starts doing bed phase attacks, my nemesis. And at 5 AM, he stops doing slow spins altogether and will now only do fast spins. By making Vinnie behave differently at every hour in the game, you now need to spend more time learning how to deal with him for each and every hour of the night. And getting practice in for the 5 AM attacks is pretty difficult. In addition, the slow increase in difficulty combined with the intense pulsing sounds in the background make for one of the most nerve-intensive challenges I've ever seen. Every time you get to 5 AM on one of these challenges, the more you will feel your heart pound, especially on the hardest versions of this challenge. It's also pretty important to recognize the transition to 5 AM, so you can adjust to the new movement, but forcing yourself to realize that it's 5 AM will add even more to the insane nerves at the end of the night. The last notable aspect of the Shadow Vinnie challenge is the bed phase attacks. After 3 AM, when Vinnie goes under the bed, things will be different. Rather than just luring him out, now you need to survive a full attack sequence that takes place under the bed. These attack phases are similar to Rat and Cat's attack phases in that they have 3 locations and you just need to shine your light on his eyes enough times to repel him. Now, these bed phases can be super finicky, especially since the game doesn't lock your camera in place, which causes the hitbox you need to aim at to move based on where your mouse is, and that can feel super jank. In addition, the hitboxes are super small, especially with OG laser pointer, and I'll have a full dedicated rant on these bed phases later on. After repelling the bed phase, remember which side Vinnie ended on. He will never end in the middle and will always end on either the left or the right. The side that Vinnie ended on under the bed is the side that the next attack sequence will start in. This was another major headache for me when learning this mode. At first, I thought you were supposed to rapidly check both sides to see where the next attack will start, but Vinnie's kill timer is way too short for this. By the time you check both sides, you will always die. Of course, I didn't know this, I just assumed I wasn't going fast enough, and I was starting to get really frustrated. But eventually someone from the MML Discord helped me, and I was able to get that aspect down. Even still, I was having some problems with the bed faces because of that side confusion thing I talked about last video, and I needed to end up literally chanting out loud things like, he's on the left, go to the left, or he's on the right, go to the right, just to make sure I knew not to overcomplicate it in my head. And even after getting that down, I was still having problems with the bed face attacks when doing OG laser pointer, but again, dedicated ran later on. For now, let's talk about the other 3 challenges. So I kinda lied to you earlier. I said that Puppet Master only had one animatronic, and that was Monster Vinnie. However, there is one more minor animatronic, but he doesn't really do anything, to be honest. Similarly to the classic cat challenge, Puppet Master has a challenge called Monstergami. Monstergami is the monster version of the origami cat, who is a character that I do not have nearly enough FNAC lore knowledge to be qualified to explain. After flashing Vinnie at the bedside, Vinnie will wait under the bed for exactly 14 seconds. And this is the period of time where Monstergami will attack. After rewinding the tape player, you will see a pair of purple eyes staring at you from the middle of the room. This is Monstergami, but the room is so dark you can pretty much only see his eyes. You need to shine your flashlight on his eyes 8 times or Monstergami will steal your cassette, ruining your run. Monstergami is a much more threatening animatronic than Classic Cat, but I'd still say his challenge is by far the easiest challenge in Puppet Master. For our next challenge, Hard Cassette makes a return from Rat and Cat, and it works in pretty much the exact same way. The night length increases by double, and if you go too long without your tape player playing, you'll fall asleep and lose the night. This time, however, we need to actually respect the falling asleep part, but it's not too bad. For the first few hours of the night, the time you get to rewind the tape player is actually not enough to get a full rewind, and so the tape player will slowly lose more and more progress with each cycle. So we want to absolutely maximize the amount of time we are rewinding the tape player for, and we can actually take advantage of Monstergami of all things to help us with that. Remember how I said that Vinnie will stay under the bed for 14 seconds? Well, we can actually use the song that plays when Monstergami attacks as a timer. After repelling Monstergami's attacks, these 3 notes will play. The 3rd note marks the time we need to be in the position to lure out Vinnie. Any later than that and Vinnie will come out and instantly jump scare us. So right after the 2nd note plays, quickly stop the rewind, come out from under the bed, and look to the side of the room to lure out Vinnie. This will give us the maximum amount of rewind we can, which not only helps us stay awake, but also helps keep the screen from turning purple for longer. There is one more thing to keep in mind when playing this challenge with Hard Cassette on, and that is the transition to the bed phases. By the time you get to the bed phases, you're probably starting to feel the effects of Hard Cassette, and your screen is probably pretty damn purple. This can make the already janky bed phase even more annoying. And because bed phase cycles are so much longer than 12 to 2 AM cycles, you might even be in danger of falling asleep by the time the bed phase is over. Luckily, we have a pretty cool trick up our sleeve. After repelling the Monstergami attack, we can go look at the tape player and hit stop, start, stop, then rewind. This will play the tape player for a very short amount of time, and that short amount of time will fully reset the progress on our sleep timer. And so we can do Vinnie's bed phase in peace. And since the bed phase cycles are so much longer, we can easily get a full rewind on the tape player from now on. So we don't need to do the stop, start, stop, rewind trick anymore. And last but not least, our GOAT, the laser pointer, makes a return as well. Laser pointer in Puppet Master works the exact same as it did in Rat and Cat. Your flashlight gets shrunk to about half its original size, making seeing the animatronic movements much more difficult. For Rat and Cat, this made us need to master prediction movement, where we needed to predict when and where the animatronics would dodge to and adjust accordingly. But in Puppet Master, we have a different approach to deal with the much smaller flashlight. Vinnie has way more positions he can be in than Rat and Cat, but they are always conformed to the same circle. That means that if we move across the entire circle, we can see where Vinnie is, and from here we have 2 options. The first is to quickly react and snap your cursor back to where we saw Vinnie. I like to do this when Vinnie spins the same way that I spin, since I'll be able to react to him stopping much easier. The second option is to actually spin the entire circle a second time, requiring less reaction time but more movement time. I like to do the 2-spin method if Vinnie spins the opposite way that I do, or if my spin is too far behind Vinnie's to see him. Now again, the main difficulty of Puppet Master comes from the ridiculous 0.75 second kill timer, so we need to spin really fast. Unlike Rat and Cat, this kill timer will spin down whether Vinnie is spinning or not. So if Vinnie spins for half a second, we only have 0.25 seconds to snap to his hitbox. Luckily, the 2-spin strategy can help us out here. Ideally, both spins will hit his hitbox. But even if they don't, my spins usually take around 0.3 seconds. So there is still a tiny window where we can get away with missing his hitbox 1 time. But if you miss it both times, it's as good as game over. Now, for the 1-spin strategies, since we only do that method when he spins the same direction as us, we actually stay more or less on Vinnie's hitbox while he's spinning. So we still pretty much get the full 0.75 seconds to react to him stopping. Now there's one more thing that the laser pointer challenge does to Puppet Master that adds difficulty. When Vinnie moves locations, he will always alternate between one of the sides, then the middle, then one of the sides again, then the middle again, and then the bed phase. When Vinnie moves to the next location from one of the sides, it's pretty obvious where he will go to. It's the middle. But when Vinnie moves location from the middle, be it to the third phase of the attack or to the bedside, he can go to either the left or right. And with laser pointer, it can be very hard to see which one he went to. You don't have enough time to check both sides, so you absolutely need to make sure you are able to see which way he goes. Now, there are some very slight differences in the animation that can help you find which way he goes to, but I just recommend aiming at the very top of his movement circle while he's transitioning. Vinnie can only move once his head is at the very top of his circle, so if you catch him doing a movement, you can always see which way he goes to. And that is everything we need to know about this challenge for the base version of Puppet Master All Challenges. But of course, there is an OG laser pointer version. It is real and it can hurt you, but we'll talk about that later. For now, let's talk about my experience beating regular PMAC. Like Rat and Cat, I progressed through this max mode one challenge at a time, and had pretty much no trouble until Laser Pointer. My plan was the same as Rat and Cat. I'd beat this challenge without hard cassette on first, and then add it back for the true Puppet Master All challenges. For Rat and Cat, doing that was pretty much the same functionally as getting a 3 AM run or so. It's just that it felt more accomplishing to see the alarm clock at the end of your efforts, which gave him a motivation boost. But for PMAC, it's much more than that. Because Vinnie behaves differently at every hour of the night, it can be pretty difficult to get some practice in for the later hours. By beating this challenge without hard cassette on, not only does it feel more motivating to complete a step forward, but we also get some practice in for the later hours while doing so. So, how was that going? Yeah, I spent a few hours trying to get this, but I was just having too many problems with seeing where Vinnie was going to when switching attack phases. I hadn't really caught on to the fact that he always goes to the top of his circle before doing this yet, so I was kinda stuck. And it was super frustrating because I was having almost no trouble surviving his attacks. I just kept losing to something that didn't even feel like it was supposed to be difficult, and that was really starting to annoy me. It's because of things like this that I actually took a ton of breaks even on the easy challenges while working up to PMAC. Originally, I was planning on beating Blood 720 first, and I was sort of just trying out PMAC here and there. But to be honest, I wasn't really liking either of them, so I kind of fell into the cycle for a while where I was booting up one, getting fed up with it, switching to the other, and repeat. So for a while, I was sort of doing both at the same time. I couldn't decide which one I wanted to do first, which was actually a huge problem for me. Since I was fighting a war on two fronts, it made it difficult to give my all to either of them. I needed to pick one. Eventually, I decided that PMAC was the lesser of two evils and ended up committing to it instead. Now that I had committed myself and my time to PMAC, I was ready to make some real progress. But there was still that one problem with the phase transitions, and I solved it by doing something that I really didn't want to do. For both of these FNAC 3 challenges, you've probably been wondering what happens if you just brighten up your screen really bright. Would you be able to see the animatronics in complete darkness? Well, no, at least not anymore. Gamma strats have been a thing for a long time in this game, and on modern versions of this game, they have been nerfed by quite a bit. You can't see animatronics in complete darkness anymore, but you can still use them to make seeing what you're allowed to see much easier, and that's exactly what I did. I used my GPU control panel to boost the gamma of my monitor by about 100%, and also shifted the hue to make Vinnie stand out even more. Now, everything inside the circle stood out a lot, and I would probably have an easier time seeing the phase transitions. The changes in gamma are actually not seen by my recording software, so the recording looks completely normal. But for this part of the video, I edited the footage to show you roughly what I was seeing. Now, I'm not really a fan of using gamma strats, but they are considered legitimate and a lot of people use them. And they are very effective. So effective that after turning them on, I was able to beat PMAC without hard cassette on my very first try. And about a day later, while in a VC with some friends, I ended up beating full Puppet Master All challenges. I beat it.
You did it.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
It was now time to face OG Laser Pointer, and oh boy is this one a doozy. If you thought that Laser Pointer made a big difference in Rat and Cat, you have not seen anything yet. In case you haven't seen the last video, OG Laser Pointer is an extra optional challenge that not only shrinks the flashlight visually, but also shrinks the hitboxes of the animatronics, making aim much more important. When I introduced OG Laser Pointer in the last video, I showed a graph that looks something like this, which shows just how big of a difference OG Laser Pointer made to the Rat and Cat challenge. Now if I were to add Puppet Master on Easy to this graph, it would look something like this. If I were to add PMAC, it would look something like this, and if I were to add PMAC with OG Laser Pointer, it would look something like this. That's right, the difference made by OG Laser Pointer this time is absolutely insane. And there is a reason that despite having been all sorts of FNAF challenges since then, PMAC with OG Laser Pointer is still by far my hardest challenge beaten. So why does OG Laser Pointer make such a big difference in Puppet Master compared to Rat and Cat? Well, it's kinda hard to explain, but here's a bit of an interactive example. If you're watching on a computer, feel free to try this out for yourself. But if you're watching on mobile or TV, don't worry, you should still get the idea just by looking. Place your mouse on this white dot. When I say go, try to move your mouse twice around the circle within about 1.1 seconds without ever leaving the circle. Ready? Go. Now, that was probably pretty easy, and a good number of you may have been able to do it in time without leaving the circle at all. But now let's try again, but this time we'll have a circle that looks like this. Ready? Go. This time, I imagine almost all of you had your mouse leave the circle at least once, and that's my point. Trying to stay inside such a small circle is much harder than trying to flick your mouse to a smaller circle. Now, the example I gave is a bit oversimplified, since you have factors like reaction time and the fact that you can't see the circle and many other things, but hopefully it helps you understand the difference that OG Laser Pointer makes this time. So how was I tackling my greatest hurdle yet? Well, actually I wasn't. At least not at first. I actually went back to Blood 720 for a bit to procrastinate because this challenge kinda scared the shit out of me. But my hatred for Blood 720 quickly outweighed my fear of PMAC with OG Laser Pointer, and the grind began. Just like with regular PMAC, I wanted to beat this challenge without hard cassette on, both for motivation and for practice. And I actually got off to a decent start, making it to 3 AM on my first hour of attempts. But it was that run where I ran into my nemesis, those damn bed phases. Especially in OG Laser Pointer, the bed phases were just super jank. Unlike with Rat and Cat, your camera position isn't locked while doing the bed phase attacks, meaning that your camera still follows your mouse. This combination of mechanics leads to your target moving as your mouse moves, and it just feels super weird and inconsistent. This is actually also the case for the Monstergami attacks, but those aren't really too much of a problem, to be honest. This entire sequence is made even worse that the hitboxes are just... like, look at them, what even is this? Now, luckily you don't really need to have your mouse on the hitboxes for very long, so it's not common for the hitboxes to move out of your mouse once it's in position, but that doesn't mean it never happens. And of course, it wouldn't be a top FNAF challenge if it wasn't super unforgiving. The kill timer here is really short like always, and combined with everything else, and the fact that you don't even reach these bed phases until 3 AM, made these bed phases my personal kryptonite. Without hard cassette on, you need to survive 2 bed phases to win the night. It wasn't easy, but I did eventually get a run that survived both of them. And I had beaten the last challenge before PMAC with OG Laser Pointer. Now, I didn't catch this on recording because it came so suddenly, but what happened next was absolutely insane. On my 3rd attempt of PMAC with OG Laser Pointer, I managed to reach all the way to 5 AM, which was of course super encouraging. It made me wonder if I was just over-practicing the mode, and I was already ready to beat it. I was clearly starting to get the hang of the bed phases, and the attacks were difficult, but manageably consistent so far. Unfortunately, Vinnie decided to take the next 7 days to remind me why his challenge was, at the time, worth more than every other FNAF challenge I've ever done, plus the next 2 challenges I do combined. My main problem was that I had a huge mind block on the bed phases. After getting that 5 AM run, my consistency on them dropped to literally 0 for the next few days. And for that reason, I wasn't even able to get past 3 AM for the next few days. Again, I was reasonably consistent at the actual attack sequences, so it was super frustrating to get stuck at a part of the night that isn't even supposed to be the hard part. I was so discouraged by this that there were some days that I only played for like 10 minutes and just gave up for the day. But I did eventually start to pick up on some things that helped me out. You see, Vinnie will always alternate between his middle position and one of his side positions, just like his attacks, and realizing that helped me survive some of the bed phases. On top of that, I ended up implementing prediction movement similar to the Rat and Cat prediction movement. I always predicted that Vinnie will return to the side he was at previously, which helps me if I'm right and doesn't hurt me if I'm wrong. Now, I was starting to embed phases again, and soon after, I would start getting some more 4 AM runs. My consistency was rising, and more importantly, I was actually starting to have fun with the challenge. And soon after, I would get another 5 AM run. The 5 AM attacks in PMAC are without a doubt the hardest part of the night, at least with OG Laser Pointer. Since Vinnie stops doing slow spins, the pace of his attacks skyrockets, and the background ambience makes your nerves go wild. I have beaten many challenges before in various games, and many of them make your nerves act up, but PMAC nerves have to be the worst of them all. With all things considered, it wouldn't be unfair to say that just 5 AM alone makes up about half the difficulty of the night, and even after reaching it, we still have one more bed phase left. With hard cassette on, we need to deal with 3 bed phase attacks now, and neither one of my 5 AM runs made it past the last one. But then the next day, I had a ton of 5 AM runs, including one that did make it past the final bed phase. Unfortunately, it didn't win, but I knew I was getting close, really close. And later that night, while in a VC in the MML Discord, we got him.
Better than living, is it not?
PMAC with OG laser pointer was actually pretty fun once I started to get the bed phases down, and I'm very glad I beat this challenge. If you didn't know, these videos are quite far behind my actual progress on the ladder. As I said a couple times as of me editing this video, PMAC with OG laser pointer is still my hardest FNAF completion, but it won't be for long. I've started working on Twisted 27 and I've actually made some pretty good progress so far, and once that's done, that will be my new hardest. If you want to stay up to date on my latest progress, check out my second channel, Emerald Ingots. I'll put the link in the description. For now, it's time to move on to other things. My next video I upload probably won't be on the ladder, but don't worry, I'll soon be back with the next ladder video on Blood 720. Thank you for watching.